Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me on this absolutely beautiful Tuesday. I know probably not everybody had a choice, but still, it is a beautiful Tuesday, and we are not sitting in an office. Glory, hallelujah. So I'm Victoria Ackroyd. I'm the program manager for the Northeast Cover Crops Council. I'm here today to tell you about a species selector tool that we've developed that could possibly help you with making recommendations. And when I start these sorts of things out, I like to know who I'm talking to. Now, I've been making, small talk with a lot of folks, and I'm guessing pretty much everybody is NRCS. Is there anybody here who's not NRCS? Oh, wow, okay, so I'm glad I asked. Yell out, where are you from? Who do you work for? Or are you a farmer? MDA. Okay, so it's NRCS and MDA. Awesome, good to know. Okay, cool, thank you. Anybody else? Don't be shy. Okay, so we've got Prince William Conservation District and MDA and NRCS for our audience. Good to know. All right, so just to give you a sense of what I'm going to do today, I'm going to give you a brief introduction of the environment in which this tool was developed, and then I'm actually going to jump into the specifics about the species selector tool in terms of its history. I'm going to do a bit of a demo, and then we should have plenty of time for questions. If you have a question in the middle, feel free to raise your hand or something, but we should have time at the end. I do want to apologize in advance. I usually prefer to do live demos, but I've been told that internet access here is really spotty and even hotspots are not reliable, so it's all screenshots. So if you guys want to pull up the tool on your phone or try to while I'm talking, you're certainly welcome to. I won't, grumble about people looking at their phones or anything, so don't be shy about that. And as I've said, it is a beautiful day, and we do have this beautiful breeze, and thus we have the beautiful wavy screen. So if that gets to bother you too much, let me know, and I can do this. Oh, thank you. Okay, we're going to get a door closed. That might help a little with the washed out, too. Thank you. So, with that said, cover cropping is knowledge intensive, and you guys probably know that by now. Cover crops do indeed provide a wide range of ecological services. They do things like help suppress weeds, they can support beneficial insects, they help prevent erosion, they can act as nurse crops for your cash crop. However, adding cover crops most definitely adds management complexity to a system. We live in the digital age. You can find anything on the internet. Some of it's true, some of it's probably not true. But when you're looking for information that you actually want to put into use in your field, that you're using in theory to make money, that massive amount of information is not necessarily a happy thing. In terms specifically of farming systems, you're balancing crop genetics, cash crop genetics, and cover crop genetics, environmental conditions, cultural practices, and just managing the overall system, often at really busy times of the year. Luckily, cover cropping can be highly collaborative, and that's where, bless you, MDA, NRCS, the soil water conservation districts come into play. There's a variety of organizations that are supporting innovation in cover cropping. A lot of groups really want to see adoption increase, and a lot of these groups really actually want to see farmers get more out of their cover crops. So of course you've got NRCS and the various state departments of agriculture. You've got various other government organizations like Northeast SARE. You've got a cover crop council now in every single region of the Northeast, or excuse me, of the US. You've got the Midwest came first, the Northeast came second, but if you get into a room with my colleagues in the South, they will argue that they were right on our tail. And then the Westerners are the newest group. Each of these cover crop councils has made an effort to adapt resources for its region and to adapt itself to its region. For example, the Northeast is really compact, geographic-wise, just location size-wise, whereas the West is so big that they've divided into subcommittees based on their various subregions. And then on top of that, you've also got various research groups, such as the Precision Sustainable Agriculture team, that are actively doing research and developing tools to, again, support innovation in cover cropping. So I want to point out as well that there's a lot of existing data and tools available. So the Midwesterners developed the council first. The Midwest Cover Crops Council came first, and they were also the first to develop a tool. And good Lord, it's 2021? What year is it, guys? Help me, it's 2022, woohoo! Which means that their tool has now been around since the end of the 20-aughts, over a decade old now, and they recently revamped it. They came first with this whole council decision tool. NRCS has certainly also have a long history of developing, Excel tools that often run macros. For example, Paul Ceylon up in New York with NRCS developed a seeding rate tool that we're working on to develop a calculator. And then, of course, you can go to the experts themselves, and in order to vet the data underlying our tool, we absolutely did that. We have relied on over 50 cover crop experts across plant hardiness zones 3 through 7 in the eastern US to develop this tool. We have also relied on existing resources such as itis.gov. So does anyone want to tell me what oilseed radish's Latin name is? Does anyone know what it currently is? I don't know either. That and annual ryegrass, perpetual irritation. Anyway, so we don't actually pull that out of our heads. We go to sources like itis.gov for that. Lord, some of the things that I've seen autocorrect change the clover names to, it's Trifolium incarnatum, and autocorrect just gets nasty with it. So you always double check those names. The USDA Plants database has provided information to us. This one is a favorite for me, Web Soil Survey, the Surgo database. We pull from this to provide soil conditions in our tool. And then here's a fun fact about weather data. The US government collects weather data, and technically it's available for free if you can access it. But the APIs, the user interfaces to access the weather data that is collected using your tax money, those user interfaces are almost never free, to the point where the PSA team, the Precision Sustainable Ag folks, developed a weather data API that lets us pull that data without paying for a subscription. So we've relied on a lot of talent, and we always want to acknowledge the folks that have assisted us with this effort. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, there we go, I can still count, 5 different hardiness zone teams and their long-suffering zone team leaders who assisted us, again, in doing what we call data verification, basically making sure that the data underlying the tool fit any given hardiness zone. And just in terms of what that data encompasses, we had 56 cover crop experts who were divided among 5 plant hardiness zones, and total we had 64 cover crops to deal with. Now, if you go to like zone 7 in our tool, you will not find 64 cover crop options because each zone is a subset. And there's a lot of overlap, but we range from 40 something for zone 5 to 20, 25 for zone 7 or so. And then these cover crops were rated on 117 variables that were divided into 9 categories. I'm not going to go into super duper detail here, just giving you a sense of the fact that organizing the underlying structure for this tool was a massive undertaking, but there is structure there. Just in terms of what it actually looked like when those 56 experts were going through the data, we used an online, I guess you'd call it utility, called Airtable. It kind of is like a cross between Excel and online Google Sheets, except it lets us easily update our tool. It's super easy for our programmers to pull changes from the tool and change data within the tool, which was not a function originally native to the Midwesterners tool. They since have created said function, but it was one of those cases where we recognized a need and we filled it. You look at this and you go, wow, that's a lot of ratings and rankings. It was indeed. So this is what the interface looks like. If you go to the website, it's HTTPS. I always get semicolon and colon confused. I think that's a colon. And then / covercrop.tools /. And this is what the landing page looks like. Does that look like a tool to y'all? Maybe? Why not? You're halfway there. So this is an ongoing debate. It's the same address, but there's actually 2 modules, you could say, in the tool. What you're looking at right now is the Cover Crop Explorer. I didn't have time didn't think I was going to have time to go into it today, and so I didn't pull screenshots. This is actually just a really cool interface for trawling through all the data that we have on the cover crops in this tool. However, we're actually going to be talking about this other tab, which is the species selector tool, which is a far more guided walkthrough tool. So when you go to this landing page, the first thing I actually want to point out, aside from the fact that don't freak, this is not actually the tool interface we're going to be looking at, is these 3 links up here at the top. We've got an about page, and anything that you want to know about the development of the tool is here. If you want to see who participated in helping to develop the tool, that's here. If you want to see who funded us, that's here. A lot of the folks that helped us were in our CS or they were early career faculty, and we felt very strongly that we needed to acknowledge their efforts, whether they were helping review data or heaven help them if they were beta testing the tool looking for bugs. And so you can go and find out about our experts. Likewise, the help page. This might be the single most useful part of this website aside from the tool itself, because it literally has a walkthrough of how to use the tool. It also includes our information sheets in our data dictionary, which literally tells you what every single category in the tool that the cover crops were rated on is. That sentence takes some parsing. So if you want to know what field duration means, and you don't want to, for some reason, mouse over the little I next to the term, you can go to the data dictionary and look. And then perhaps most germane to you folks is the frequently asked questions. So here's a question for you guys. What is forage brassica? Forage brassica can mean a lot of different things depending on who you're talking to. And so we absolutely did things in the FAQs like clarify what we meant by forage brassica. And what we meant was various crosses between, B. napus and, oh, it gets confusing. I can't even hardly remember anymore. That's why we have a frequently asked questions page. That page also tells you how to do things like derive answers. So we're going to get to the goals, where I'm going to talk about how the initial round of recommendations is generated. But if there's a goal on that page that you don't see that you want, like protect water quality, the frequently asked questions suggests some other goals that you can use in combination with each other to derive what might be useful if you're interested in protecting water quality. So then finally, aside from the tool itself, the third thing that I wanted to talk about here is the feedback page. We were developed using public funds. We are open source, open access, and we are always looking to improve. So please provide us with feedback. And as much as we love people who tell us, we love your tool, we also like, constructive criticism. If you see a typo, drop us a line. If you see a rating you don't agree with, drop us a line. If you see a function that you'd like to see in the tool, drop us a line. Some things will get fixed faster than others, Typos we can fix overnight, especially if they're really concerning typos. If you feel that Radish is not great at breaking up compaction in zone 7, there are things that there is still debate over. And so we would have to go back to our experts. That would take longer to resolve. But it's still information that we would take on board. And then in terms of further functions that you would like to see for the tool, we do hope to do improved versions of this tool. And so, for example, we wanted to be able to generate job sheets, but that didn't make it into the first cut. But it's absolutely on our list. It would probably be useful for a lot of you guys. And so, don't be shy about providing feedback. With that said, I'm actually going to jump into some screenshots of the actual demo. So again, when you hit this page, you're welcome to play around. The purpose of the Explorer is to encourage people to, educate themselves, to learn a bit more. But at the same time, if you're looking for a straightforward walkthrough of how to generate recommendations, then you're going to want to go to the species selector tool. This sets us up, with what we call the wizard. Always scroll down. You'll find this next button at the bottom of each page. This is the landing page for the tool itself. And it directs you to resources like the help page and the feedback page. You hit next, and you get to the first point that you need to enter, which is location data. This took forever for us to figure out, but we did figure it out, and we are so happy that we did. You can start typing your address, and the Google API thingamy, I'm sorry, I'm not a programmer, will start to pull up options. So you can at that point pick, what your address is, and it'll pull up your zone at the same time. And so this is just Google dropping a link or a pin right there. You can get more specific though. Coming here today, for some reason, Google Maps sent me half a mile down the road. That might not necessarily be useful if your field is right here. And so much like with Web Soil Survey, we do have this utility where you can draw a field boundaries, or you can just drop a pin, and you can get more specific than an address. Because, how many of you guys are in 1 acre fields at an address that the Postal Service recognizes as being a 1 acre parcel? Anybody? Maybe a small vegetable grower? Okay, so anyway, you can get more specific than just the street address with this. Then it moves on when you hit the next button to soil conditions. It's pulling from Surgo, from Web Soil Survey. However, Web Soil Survey is only exact down to a certain magnification, resolution. And so you may find that you don't necessarily agree with what your drainage class is or what your soil is. And thus, you can change this. You can change the flooding frequency. You can tell the tool if you've got tile. This is a point of information that is taken into account when recommendations are generated, how well drained your soil is. And then finally, that weather API I was talking about, it pulls the climate conditions. Right now, the climate conditions don't affect the recommendations, but we're hoping in the future we could do something more interesting with the current versus the average weather. Then finally, we get to the goals. This is what you want the cover crop to do for you. You can pick up to 3 goals. If you mouse over any of these, it will pop up a box that'll tell you exactly what we mean. And so here I've only picked 2. I picked nitrogen fixation and prevent fall erosion, fall soil erosion. And then I go to the output screen. And the first thing that I notice is that this doesn't really look like it's in the right order. There's a couple different ways that the initial output screen can come up. And if your goals don't look like they're quite listed from best to worst, click this button with the 3 lines on it, and that'll rearrange them so that it works. You can also go here and click to edit your goals, and you can change the priority of the goals so that goal 1 becomes goal 2 and vice versa. I wanted to show you what it looks like where the dividing line is between things that are recommended and things that are not. Things that are grayed out are not recommended, and our cutoff for this on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is worst and 5 is best, anything that's rated 2 or below does not make the cut. And so, spring oats and sunflower and buckwheat don't make the cut for nitrogen fixation and prevent fall erosion. All right, so another button that I want to point out is we've got this calendar view button over here. Right now we're in what we call list view, but if you click this calendar view button up here, it will make it easier to see the optimal planting dates. We've got the green windows. Those are optimal planting dates. How many of you guys work with farmers who like to push their luck or have to push their luck? Okay. Sometimes it's not ideal, but you find yourself in, oh my God, it's November and Halloween was just crazy, but I want to plant something. I need to plant something, but it's November, even in Virginia. Well, these yellow bars are temperature or moisture risk to establishment. So if you've got someone that wants to push their luck and it's September, October, November, these might be better options than things that don't offer you anything in that date range at all, but there's still a risk there. So again, if you want to return to list view, you click the top left button, not the back arrow button on my clicker, and you come back to list view. And another nifty button that I want to point out, which exists in both the Cover Crop Explorer and the Species Selector tool, is View Details. View Details. This brings up our information sheet. If you want to see all the data that are in the tool for a cover crop, pull up the information sheet. It's a shame that I'm not on the internet because I'd love to scroll down right now, but what you see here is a description, and the description has a little extra information like what you might plant it and mix with. This is not a mixtures tool. It has some rather nifty pictures. It has an overview of all the ratings and rankings and planting rates and planting dates. And if you go all the way down to the bottom, it's even got comments. So coastal plain versus Piedmont, how similar are those two regions? I mean, you have both in Maryland, you have both in Virginia. They're not terribly similar. My point here is that you can have averages are exactly that. And so the comments is where you find the exceptions, the edge cases, the little bits of extra information that might be of interest depending on what system you're in. If your farmer is growing blueberries, that's kind of an edge case, and your farmer might be interested in something that really can tolerate acidic soil. If there's going to be a comment about that, it'll be down in the comment section at the bottom of this sheet, along with warnings, things like do not feed the horses in terms of forage quality. So then, bless you. Coming to the filters on the left, here is your second opportunity to actively manipulate the tool to further refine the recommendations. So you can hit the down button and it'll open like an accordion, and you can see all the ratings and rankings that are in this tool. And then you can say things like, you know, I'd like something that has a flood tolerance of at least 4 stars, and it will further screen things out. Here, I think I told it I want things that are legumes, and so that screened out all of the grasses. It can help to narrow down the recommendations. You've also got this nifty clear filters button so that you don't have to, you know, restart the whole shebang in order to get going. And again, you've got the View Details button here. View Details in a lot of places. So, another button that might be of interest, because there's a lot of buttons in this tool, is Add to List. So, looking at a long screen that you have to scroll down even after you've started to narrow things can get old. Maybe you have narrowed it in on, you know, 5 or 6 species that you're particularly interested in, and you want to do a deep dive on those side by side. This is where Add to List comes into play. You go on ahead and you click Add to List, and you can click up to 5. And you can do that in both the Cover Crop Explorer and the Species Selector tool. And after you've started adding to your list, you will see that you get a third tab up here at the top. It tells you how many you've got, and if you click on that number, it'll tell you which ones you've picked. And then it lines them up side by side. And those nifty filters on the left, you can go on ahead and hit Comparison View, and you can expand the accordions under any of these. You can tell it which characteristics or traits or rankings you're specifically interested in. And it'll set you up to just more easily compare. You know, you can see Hairy Vetch here. Hairy Vetch, what could I say about Hairy Vetch? Hairy Vetch has a lower average goal rating than red clover based on the goals of nitrogen fixation and preventing fall soil erosion. You can see that, you know, in terms of drought tolerance, cowpea is going to be your best bet. You can see that cereal rye is absolutely not an option for nitrogen fixation. So anyway, my list just lets you do a deeper dive once you think you've got things narrowed down enough. And if you want to get creative with this, you can. What you could say is, I want to generate a mix, and I want something that's good with, you know, traits X, Y, Z, and then cereal rye is, you know, really great for preventing fall erosion, but it's not good for nitrogen fixation. But Hairy Vetch, which can be planted at the same time, is great for nitrogen fixation, even though it's mediocre for preventing fall erosion. And so if you want to get creative with this in terms of thinking of mixes by, you know, complementary traits, you certainly can. You are entirely limited by your imagination and basic common sense. We hope that this tool will be helpful for folks in making recommendations. We absolutely do still tell people that they need to consult with NRCS or their Department of Ag, especially if they are participating in cost share or whatnot, just to verify that what they've picked matches up with the requirements of their program. But with that said, I would like to offer our thanks to the over 50 Eastern farmers, researchers, and employees of assorted organizations that have helped us with this tool. I'd also like to thank our funders. I'd like to thank you guys for your patience with my tech glitch. My email address is here. My inbox is always open. And I know Ms., is it Dr. or Ms.? Susan Lamb is here. So, okay, just Susan. No, never just Susan. Susan Lamb is here with NRCS to answer any questions anyone might have about the intersection of this tool with, the NRCS standard or things like that. And I'm happy to take general questions as well. Okay, so the question is, for some programs, don't people have to pick one from each functional group, and does this tool allow you to sort by functional group? The answer is this tool absolutely has a filter where you can pick plant family, or like grass, legume, brassica. So I'm assuming that's what you mean by functional group. Okay, thank you. So the comment for the folks that are recording is that the fact sheet can be useful for learning about the cover crops and getting a better sense of whether the cover crop is good for your use. I'd also like to point out that those fact sheets include links to further resources. So there's things, again, that coming back to averages can only get you so far. There's links to resources that are of interest to folks like herbicide carryover. Not a lot of resources exist on that right now, but they're working on it. Or, cover crops for pollinators. There are sources that go more in depth on that. And so if you guys have a source that you think should be included in this tool and on the Cover Crop Council website, feel free to, again, my inbox is always open.